The Coon Rapids City Council is asking residents to vote on a park bond referendum in the fall in the amount of just over $17 million. If approved, the money would go to repair and upgrade several of the city's parks. Come along as we take you on a tour around the city as city officials explain to us why some of the parks are in need of repair and upgrades, and find out why they say the referendum is needed.
The tennis court at this particular time is closed down due to the fact of the deterioration of the asphalt underneath.
Riverview Park is one of several parks that would be renovated as part of the city's proposed park bond. From the tennis court closed 2 years ago for safety reasons to the deteriorating park equipment, it's one of many parks the city says needs major attention.
The basketball court, it still has the original backstops that were in from the 60s, and if you also take a look at the surface material, it's the concrete has cracked and is in real need of some TLC. One of the other amenities here in this park, over in the empty space over there, was a shelter at one time. It was getting pretty in rough shape, and vandalism has taken that shelter to the point where we had to take it out at this time, and again we're looking at a need of putting another shelter in there for a good park amenity that is needed here.
We're here now at Delta Park, and Greg, one thing that's easy to notice is there's a lot of weeds, a lot of overgrowth. Talk about maintenance of the park and what has happened the last few years due to budget cuts.
Well, again, Delta Park is classified as a neighborhood park, and decisions were made 4 years ago to cut back, because of budget reasons, to cut back on weed and fertilization of our neighborhood parks. And Delta Park is a prime example of a park that we have not did fertilization or herbicide spraying for 4 years, and obviously the weeds have taken over the turf that was established here at one time.
The playground equipment here is also showing its age, as it's over 20 years old. If the park bond referendum passes, the money levied would provide for new playground equipment, a new basketball court, and more trails for easier access to and from the neighborhood. Money from the park bond would provide for repairs and improvements to 9 parks and add 1 new park. It would also allow for the completion of the city's trail system. In fact, the completion of the trail connections accounts for 35% of the proposed project budget. Neighborhood parks and sidewalk gaps not part of the project list won't be left out. The city says those parks and sidewalk gaps will be completed at the same time, using funding from the yearly parks and sidewalks construction budgets. All of this would begin in 2015.
About 70 to 80% of the public use our trail system and are proud of it, and we would like to be able to provide funding to finish it.
City Manager Steve Gatlin says the park bond would provide a secure, long-term funding plan for the park system, money that is no longer available in the regular budget.
We essentially ran out of money to spend on park improvements. As the city was developing up until the early 2000s, we had a pretty steady stream of development fees, developer park dedication fees, that was used to fund park improvements, and also the city levied a fair amount just from the general fund property taxes to do park improvements. We were typically spending, from the time frame 2000 to 2009, about $600,000 to $700,000 a year on park improvements. A combination of things, just the downturn in the economy, the lack of new development, cutbacks in aids from the state to the city. We actually got no local government aid from 2009 on. Some of that did go towards parks. The money to fund park improvements essentially dried up. You know, the city continues to spend money on other infrastructure. Our enterprise funds, sewer and water, have several $millions a year spent on them through user fees. And then the city does levy a significant amount each year for our street reconstruction program, but at this point there is no available money to spend on our park system.
And with a park system that is nearing 40 and 50 years of age, the city says things are wearing out.
Riverview Park, where we are today, is kind of a classic example of a park built in the 60s that's now approaching 50 years old. All the equipment is worn out, the fields need replacement, we need new shelters, new structures, and the playground is almost getting to a point where it's no longer usable. So this is the time, we think, to do a major park improvement to fix what's aged and is no longer meeting our needs.
This is Sand Creek Park. It was built in 1968 and it is our major athletic complex in the community. On any given night between football, lacrosse, adult softball, and Little League baseball, there can be over 500 to 750 people in this park. The issues we run into with this park are the flow of the traffic. There's streets that go in between ball fields. Our concession stand is put in a location where children and adults have to be crossing streets to get to the fields. Also, the layout of the park, the athletic fields, are laid out all over the park and not in wheels, so that when teams are done, if they're playing double headers, they have to shift fields and sometimes get in vehicles and drive to the other end of the park to get to their field. Other issues include ADA accessibility is an issue here, specifically with the football fields. They're 200 yards from any parking, and there's no trails or connection to those facilities. The adult softball fields, again, are 45 years old, and they were built to the standards of wood bats. Today, with the technology of softball, the ball goes a lot farther. Adult softball fields and even baseball fields for youth for multi-purpose are built at a 300-foot home run fence distance. We also have fields that have the original lighting, and the poles are inside the fencing, which becomes a safety hazard. Also, this park houses our winter skating rinks and warming house, which is also the same age. And the skate park is our only skate park in town at this time, and it is also become run down. Sand Creek Park's about 50 acres, and many people aren't even aware of the south end of the facility, which includes basketball courts and tennis courts. What we'd look to do is blaze some trails through this area, connect it to the neighborhood behind us, and have this end be a little bit more of a neighborhood park, and then additionally having another playground and park closer to where all the ball fields are to meet the needs of those spectators. Lyons Coon Creek Park is one of our parks that is very successful, and because of that there are many needs that have come about. Specifically, the shelters are small in size, so we don't have a variety of different sizes for different picnic levels, as well as our restrooms are connected to one of the shelters, so if people rent that facility, they have to be able to allow people to come to their party to use those restrooms. Additionally, we have got some circulation issues with the park as the parking lot is separated by the creek and has a bridge in order to get over to the park. The bridge is skinny, which doesn't allow for emergency vehicles or police or anybody to get into the park, so that creates issues as well. The park bond referendum would include updating the shelters, putting in a new bridge, doing some of the stormwater drainage with the creek, and as with the flow of the drainage from the parking lot and those type of needs.
How about the playground equipment itself? Will that be updated at all, or is that in pretty good shape?
The playground would be completely updated because it is our premier park. At this time there's over 50 people here. The facility would be completely updated in its amenities.
Residents can cast their vote at their regular polling location. The city will also be sending out informational brochures in the coming months. The city says all of the plans and concept ideas talked about so far are not final. The public will have an opportunity for additional input if the referendum is approved.